The Kawasaki Ninja H2R isn't just fast, it's banned from public roads for being too powerful, too loud, and too extreme. But what really got it blacklisted? The answer lies deep inside its supercharged 998 cubic centimeter engine, an engineering marvel that's so wild it scared regulators worldwide. And once you know the truth, you'll understand why no one ever dared build something like this again. Content. Let's go back to where it all began, with Kawasaki's obsession with speed. This isn't new for them. Back in 1972, Kawasaki launched a bike that shook up the world, the Kawasaki H2 Mach 4. It had a 750cc two-stroke engine, and it didn't care about being polite. It was fast, rough, and a little dangerous. Riders nicknamed it the Widowmaker because of its wild power and unpredictable handling. That old H2 had a race version too, called the H2R, and both earned their spots in motorcycle history by blowing past limits and scaring anyone who tried to tame them. Kawasaki remembered that legacy. Years later, they weren't just making fast bikes, they were chasing the crown. In the 1990s and early 2000s, motorcycle brands were in what fans call the speed wars. Every big name, Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, wanted to build the fastest production bike on the planet. Kawasaki joined the fight with bikes like the Ninja ZX-11 and later the ZX-12R. These machines went head-to-head with rivals like the Honda CBR 1100XX Blackbird and the Suzuki Hayabusa, pushing top speeds past 300 kilometers per hour, or about 186 miles per hour. But the speed battle started getting out of control. European lawmakers were worried. Imagine average riders hitting 200+ miles per hour on highways. It wasn't hard to see the risk. So in the early 2000s, the big manufacturers made an unofficial deal. They agreed to electronically limit their bikes to 300 kilometers per hour to keep the peace. That move cooled things down for a while. But Kawasaki wasn't satisfied. Years passed, and a new idea started brewing. What if they didn't follow the rules this time? What if they built a bike that didn't need to follow speed limits or pass emissions tests? A bike not made for public roads at all, but for racetracks only? That question sparked the birth of something bold. Kawasaki set out to build the fastest, most powerful motorcycle they had ever made. And this time, they wouldn't hold anything back. In 2014, at the Tokyo Motor Show, they showed the world a sneak peek. Two bikes were coming: the Ninja H2, a street-legal supercharged sport bike, and the Ninja H2R, a closed-course version with zero restrictions. The H2 was already a beast, but the H2R, that one was next level. No headlights, no license plate, no emissions equipment, just pure, raw speed built for the track. Kawasaki called it built beyond belief, and they weren't exaggerating. The H2R was so special, Kawasaki gave it something very rare: the River Mark, a historic logo that Kawasaki only puts on milestone machines. That badge goes back to the 1870s and usually stays off motorcycles. But for the H2R, it fit. By 2015, the bike was ready. Kawasaki launched the H2R, and it immediately grabbed the title of most powerful production motorcycle in the world. How powerful? It made around 310 horsepower, almost 50% more than any legal street bike at the time. But what makes this machine so powerful? It all starts with one word: supercharged. That's the real heart of the Kawasaki Ninja H2R. Most motorcycles, even the fast ones, rely on natural aspiration. That means they pull in air the same way we breathe, at regular atmospheric pressure. But the H2R doesn't play by those rules. It force feeds its engine more air than it could ever take in naturally. And it does that using a supercharger built in-house by Kawasaki. Not a borrowed part, not something off a shelf. They made it from scratch, just for this bike. This supercharger isn't a side feature, it's the centerpiece. It uses planetary gears to spin a machined impeller at up to 130,000 revolutions per minute. That's more than 9 times faster than the engine's crankshaft. With every second that passes at full throttle, the H2R compresses over 200 liters of air into its engine. That's like shoving 2 full bathtubs of air into the cylinders every second. It boosts intake pressure up to 2.4 times normal air pressure, which is about 35 pounds per square inch. That level of forced air transforms the combustion process. More air means more fuel. More fuel means more fire. More fire means more power. This boost happens in real time with zero lag. Unlike turbochargers, which need exhaust gas to spool up, the supercharger is mechanically driven off the crankshaft, meaning it's always ready. You twist the throttle, and the boost is instant. And thanks to smart design from Kawasaki's aerospace and turbine teams, the system is so efficient that it doesn't even need an intercooler. That's rare. Most high-boost engines need one to cool the air, but here the design minimizes heat buildup. That saves space, drops weight, and simplifies airflow. All wins in the performance game. Now let's talk about the engine itself. The H2R runs a 998 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine, the same basic layout you'll see on many superbikes. But don't be fooled. This isn't a regular 4-cylinder. Everything inside has been reinforced or custom-built to survive the beating it takes at full boost. Temperatures go higher, pressures go higher, so components like pistons, valves, connecting rods, and the crankshaft are all forged and built for strength. The supercharger drive system is also integrated directly into the engine. That keeps the system compact and helps with balance. Power transfers from the crank to the supercharger through a precise gear train built to handle the forces without wasting energy. All this engineering leads to one big number, 310 horsepower. And that's just the start. At high speeds, the H2R activates its ram air intake, which forces even more air into the engine. With ram air working, the bike can hit 326 horsepower. That kind of output is unheard of for a production motorcycle. For context, most 1000cc superbikes, like the Yamaha R1, Honda CBR 1000RR, or BMW S 1000RR, produce between 180 and 205 horsepower. The Suzuki Hayabusa, known for its straight-line speed, pushes about 190 horsepower. That means the H2R makes over 100 horsepower more than bikes that already feel like rockets. And remember, the H2R weighs just about 220 kilograms, or 485 pounds. That power-to-weight ratio is insane. You're looking at roughly 1.5 horsepower per kilogram, putting it in the same class as some full-blown race cars. No wonder this thing launches like a missile. But it doesn't stop with the engine. The H2R backs up its power with an equally advanced chassis and electronic system built to handle that energy. The frame is a steel trellis frame, a structure made of high-tensile steel tubes. Kawasaki chose this over the more common aluminum frame because it handles heat better and allows for a little bit of flex at high speeds, which actually helps with stability. The open layout also improves airflow, helping to cool the engine. That's key when your motor is running under boost most of the time. The H2R also features a single-sided swing arm, the first ever on a Kawasaki sport bike. This allows for easier wheel removal and also highlights the wide rear tire, a 200mm slick designed for maximum grip on the track. The swing arm is bolted directly to the engine for added rigidity, making sure that the power doesn't get lost through flex or twist when the rider cracks open the throttle. When it comes to suspension, Kawasaki didn't hold back. The front fork is a KYB air oil separate fork, fully adjustable and designed to handle extreme forces under braking and cornering. In the back, you get a high-end Öhlins rear shock on later models, which is the same kind of tech used in top-tier racing bikes. Earlier models used KYB in the rear as well, but the switch to Öhlins gave the H2R even better response at speed. And stopping? That's covered too. The H2R runs on 330mm front brake discs, paired with Brembo monoblock calipers. These are top-shelf brakes, the kind you'd see on MotoGP bikes. You need this level of braking to slow down a bike that can cruise well over 300 kilometers per hour. There's also Kawasaki's intelligent braking system, with race-tuned ABS to prevent the wheels from locking up, even when you hammer the brakes at the end of a straightaway. Then there's the electronics suite, a full digital brain to help manage all that horsepower. The H2R includes traction control, launch control, wheelie control, engine braking control, and a quick shifter for both upshifts and downshifts without the clutch. The electronics constantly read wheel speed, throttle input, lean angle, and more, helping the rider stay in control even when the bike wants to lift the front wheel or spin the rear tire into smoke. The quick shifter also ties into a dog ring transmission, a special gearbox style usually seen in MotoGP. It allows super fast gear changes with minimal delay, helping you hold momentum without interrupting power delivery. Of course, when you're going that fast, aerodynamics matter. The H2R's body is shaped to cut through the air, but it also uses aero winglets, made of carbon fiber and developed by Kawasaki's aerospace division to create downforce. These wings aren't just for looks. At speeds approaching 200 miles per hour, they help push the front tire into the ground, giving the rider more stability and keeping the bike from going airborne. These winglets actually mark one of the first uses of such tech on a production motorcycle. Years later, you'll see winglets on MotoGP bikes, and even on street bikes, like the Ducati Panigale 5.4. But Kawasaki brought it to life on the H2R before it was trendy. The rest of the bodywork is also carbon fiber. It's light, strong, and resistant to heat. Even the paint is special. Kawasaki gave the H2R a self-healing top coat. Light scratches on the fairing can literally fade away over time, keeping the bike looking fresh after rough track use. No joke. This is the kind of paint tech used on luxury cars and aircraft. So with all this tech, all this speed, and all this raw energy, you probably have one big question in mind. If this bike is so well built and so thrilling, then why can't you ride it on the street? Here's the truth. The Kawasaki Ninja H2R was never meant to be street legal. Kawasaki didn't build it for city traffic or weekend rides through town. They designed it only for racetracks and closed courses on purpose. From day one, it's sold as a closed course only motorcycle, which means it can't be registered, titled, or ridden on public roads anywhere in the world. But what exactly disqualifies it? Let's start with the basics. Every street-legal bike needs to meet certain requirements. We're talking headlights, brake lights, turn signals, mirrors, reflectors, and a horn. You won't find any of that on the H2R. It doesn't even come with a place to mount a license plate. The nose is smooth and sharp, built for speed, not visibility. The tail is aerodynamic and aggressive, not functional for road use. If you rolled up to a DMV with an H2R, they wouldn't even know where to start. And then there are the tires. The H2R comes with racing slicks, the kind of tires that don't even have treads. These tires are made for hot, dry, racetrack surfaces. On a cold or wet public road, they're dangerous. They offer almost no grip in bad weather. Most states and countries ban slick tires for street use because of how quickly they lose traction outside racing conditions. The exhaust system on the H2R is as wild as the engine itself. It runs a straight pipe race exhaust, which means it skips all the usual filters and mufflers. That makes the bike extremely loud. We're talking over 120 decibels at full throttle. It's so loud that some racetracks have had to issue noise warnings for riders bringing in an H2R. And on public streets, you wouldn't last more than a minute before someone called the police or flagged you down. Many places, including states like Connecticut, have specific noise laws that limit how loud vehicles can be. These laws are strict, and the H2R doesn't even come close to meeting them. And we haven't even touched on emissions yet. The H2R doesn't include catalytic converters or any emissions control systems. It's tuned to run rich and aggressive, which means it pumps out more pollutants than allowed by the EPA in the US or Euro 4/Euro 5 standards in Europe. It would fail any emissions test the moment you fired it up. Kawasaki got around this by never trying to make the H2R road legal. They didn't have to meet any of those rules because they sold it as a track-only vehicle from the start. Now, Kawasaki did build a street-legal version called the Ninja H2. That bike includes lights, mirrors, and a quieter exhaust. It also has a toned-down engine, making about 200 horsepower instead of the H2R's 310 to 326 horsepower. Why the big difference? Because Kawasaki had to detune the bike to make it pass emissions and noise limits. The H2 is still brutally fast, but it's held back by laws and regulations. That's what makes the H2R such a beast. Kawasaki didn't hold back. No emissions gear, no mufflers, no lights, just speed. That's also why you can't register it for the road. It doesn't meet the safety, noise, or pollution standards that every other legal bike has to follow. In fact, When you buy one, it comes with a manufacturer's statement of origin, MSO, instead of a title. That's the document used for vehicles that aren't street legal, just like dirt bikes, ATVs, or race cars. Some people have asked if you could convert an H2R for the street. In theory, you could add lights and mirrors, maybe even swap the exhaust, but even then, you'd hit a wall. The engine tuning is still too dirty for emissions testing, and many places simply won't inspect or certify a vehicle that wasn't approved for road use from the factory. The cost, paperwork, and testing would be massive. And even if you passed all that, your bike still might get flagged by noise detectors or pulled over by traffic cops just for being unusual. In short, Kawasaki knew what they were doing. By making the H2R track only, they unlocked a level of performance that no street bike could touch. They didn't have to water it down. They didn't have to compromise. They just built something wild and told you up front, this thing doesn't belong on the street. And that brings up another interesting point. The H2R doesn't race in professional championships either. You won't see it in MotoGP or World Superbike WSBK. MotoGP doesn't allow supercharged or turbocharged engines. That rule's been in place since 1946. And WSBK only accepts bikes that are homologated, meaning they're street-legal production models. Since the H2R isn't street-legal, it can't enter the series. That's why Kawasaki races the Ninja ZX-10R in World Superbike instead. So the H2R is in a strange category. Too fast for the street, too raw for racing rules. So, is the Ninja H2R too dangerous for the road? Not because it's out of control, but because it's too much machine for public streets to handle. The roads weren't built for this kind of speed. Traffic laws weren't designed for 300-plus horsepower rockets. And even if you could control it, the world around you wouldn't be ready.